So the topic is roadmaps to AI. It's an open topic, but we're going to be talking about what we need to do to get there and what it's going to take. So Hugo, Ben, and Kevin. Here we go.
Absolutely nothing prepared, so I hope there'll be audience interaction. Roadmaps to AI. I guess we could speak about what some of the trends are in AI and how things are progressing and so on. One of the most notable trends of the past couple of decades, I think, has been the increasing compute power and how that's opened up particular stochastic approaches, probabilistic approaches to AI. So Bayesian nets for one obvious example, but also evolutionary algorithms which depend on high degree of stochastic processing to get mutations and so on. So that's another example, genetic algorithms, those sorts of things. But also MC optimization techniques and things like that. So all of that stuff has been happening with a vengeance.
That's interesting. So I don't understand what stochastic or inputs to evolutionary AI. Is that, do you need a certain amount of computing power with these days?
Yeah, sure. Genetic algorithms were invented in the 50s. As an example, there's Oliver Selvidge's pandemonium program. You can have a look at that, where he had a kind of hybrid system. What would we call a hybrid system nowadays? But back in '59, it was it included a little bit of logic programming, some aspects of neural networks, because there were nodes with lots of weighted connections, and at the top was somebody trying to promote an answer from below. So you have low-level Boolean functions with inputs assessing different things, and at the top was some daemon. That's what's called pandemonium. A daemon which was assessing who was screaming the loudest, and did they match the scenario best, and so was their advice the best to take, etc. Anyway, this included mutation to change the functions that were at the bottom being assessed by the daemon. The problem was, although it's a beautiful architecture, the problem was that it was working on a computer that filled the room with the capacity to compute a lot less than this. And he never got anywhere. It didn't converge on anything useful. But, you know, in the 80s, whatever, genetic programming of all different varieties, including John Holland's, became popular because the compute power became available. And so they were able to operate the things long enough for them to reach an equilibrium that was useful.
Topic of computing power, Hugo, you had something interesting to say about the possibility of using topological quantum computing with theoretical anyons. Would you like to go develop this?
So when quantum computers come, saying earlier,
Kevin, it's on here.
Quantum computers are exponentially more powerful than classical computers. They can compute 2 to the n things at a time, where n is the number of bits, quantum bits in a register. Topological quantum computing is a way to make quantum computers robust. They're not fragile. You store the information using topological properties. Do you have a physics background?
Physics ignorance.
Well, there are ways in theory at the moment, and increasingly becoming practical. You can store information in topological properties. I mean, a really crude analogy. How many holes in a donut? If you store the number of bits as the number of holes, you can take that donut, and it's not made of flour, it's made of soft rubber, and you can twist it and turn it so the angles and the lengths, all those things change. But the basic topology, the number of holes, doesn't. So if you're storing the information in that sort of macro, spread out, topological way, you can make quantum computing robust. That's sort of the idea. So imagine TQC, topological quantum computing, becomes real in the next 5 to 10 years. Then you get this 2 to the n increase. So what could you do with such amazing computing power? Well, people speculate that you could simulate large molecules, because if you're a quantum chemist today, you add one atom, then the size of your problem in the Hilbert space doubles. So It's like your problem doubles. You add another and another and another, and eventually, quite quickly, your classical computer runs out of memory, runs out of power. But if you had a quantum computer, you could simulate those large ones. And then you can speculate to the degree. You can say, oh, we can simulate DNA. We can do DNA, we can do cell, we can do cell, we can do whole organism. Eventually, you've got artificial life inside a quantum computer, if your N is large enough. And then that in turn leads on to Nick Bostrom's speculation that maybe this whole universe is a simulation. You take arguments to the limit. But there's lots of potential. I mean, once quantum computers become real, that I believe will be one of the major technological inventions of the 21st century. It will just change everything. Revolutionize physics, chemistry, engineering, economics, politics. And these intellects, I believe, will be quantum computers.
So what makes you quite bullish about the idea that topological quantum computers are in flight in the time scale?
Oh, just because of the events already. Well, first the math. Math is 2002, is the same as a guy called Michael Friedman, Fields Medal winner. He's shown how to compute using TPC with these anyons, these crazy particles. And basically, you just brain it. The basic concept is simple. Like take your female long hair, right? So I'll take it into 3 strands, and I just take the middle one, and I take the left strand, and I wrap it over, and I take the right-hand strand and wrap it over, and I make a pigtail. So in a sense, you're sort of pigtailing with these anyons. And that's sufficient. You can compute with that. Just by swapping around clockwise or anti-clockwise these anyons, you can generate a unitary matrix. And anything in the math that comes out of quantum computing, which is essentially just a unitary matrix, you can do the same thing just by braiding. But braiding robustly. Remember this afternoon, it doesn't matter if the 2 anyons taking some long paths, swapping them around, or just a short, it's path independent, it's topological. The only thing that matters is are you swapping them clockwise or anti-clockwise. So it's robust. And so the first anyon, these quasi-particles found in 2005, there is a race on right now as we speak in the major labs around the world to find other anyons with the appropriate properties for universal computation. And once that's found, the first group will get a Nobel Prize. So important, that's for sure. So there's a race on. And when people start racing, 6 months, a year, 2 years, it's soon. And already the Enneon chip people they're making designs on how to control, how to change magnetic fields and electrical fields and so forth, such that these Enneons get moved around, get shuffled and swapped. So all that know-how from many decades in the silicon technology will be used for anyonics.
Okay.
At this point in time.
Do you recall any of the labs or any of the names of the scientists that we might know who are actually approaching the problem?
Some Indian guys. Just Google topological quantum computing. Or if you're technical, go to xxx.archive.org, arxiv.org, and type in topological quantum computing, and you've got about 300 or 400 papers. It's small enough to be, you can get an overview. I mean, if you're technical, you've got the right background. But it's not so huge that it's impossible to absorb.
Kevin, would this theoretical type of quantum computing address the hardware problem?
My pessimism is based on what I know, not on what I don't know. So certainly quantum computing is the kind of thing that could accelerate things way beyond Moore's law and really change the game.
The massive bit processing rate is not sufficient.
At the moment, there's something about 15 microscopic labs in the world working really hard, a lot of funding to develop these quantum computers. It's inevitable that computer processing power is going to develop. The bottleneck over the next, let's say, decade or two will be what I see as the main approach is to developing a complete AI. So the approach is by Ben Nguyen with developing a cognitive architecture. By cognitive architecture, I mean a design that takes inspiration from the brain, which happens to part model in memory, short-term memory, decision-making, emotion. That's still really hard. And then the learning from project cognitive science in design. The other approach, which the blue brain approach of scanning the brain, modeling the brain, that's still limited by our technology of being able to look into the brain. And MRIs have developed and growing more detail all the time. We used to go close down portions, and now we can still in more detail. And eventually we'll get to neuron level, and probably more. That's going to take a while as well.
Get the local neural.
Yeah. Brain scanning is also subject to Moore's law.
Exactly.
So, it's like Kurzweil was saying, it's a lot closer than you were saying. You want to have detailed knowledge of the architecture of the brain, then you just transport that knowledge into microcomputers, and progress will be a lot more rapid than what we anticipate.
So we also have to know the operational functionality inside the neuron. It's not just architecture, it's not just anatomy, it's not just detail. It's also understanding is required.
If the Penrose and Hameroff crowd, if they're correct, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So if the cell, the biological cell, is quantum computing with the microtubules, then the bit processing rate of the brain we estimated this afternoon is like 10 to the 16. Well, then if cells are quantum computing, you're going to have to square that number. And that'll put things off for several decades. At least. So there's a lot of skepticism that that's the case. A lot of people think, there's too much heat. Right? The decoherence. Decoherence, what is that? It's local disturbance of quantum information. It's the major reason why we do not have large-scale quantum computers today. I think state-of-the-art is about less than 20. At least about 8 bits, 8 particles in a row that you can manipulate. But that's a byte. It's a joke. It's so small. It's ridiculous. So the decoherence problem has to be solved before there are large-scale quantum computers. And it's the major challenge. It's been the major challenge for a quarter of a century. Why there are no large-scale quantum computers? But that's what the T is all about. Making quantum computers robust. And once that happens, I mean, most of you guys are IT types, right? Your children, if they study computer science, and you look at their, there won't be books in it. I say textbook. Whatever it is that they use, whatever. When you look at your children's educational media, whatever it is, you'll probably be shocked. It won't be algorithms and data structures, that kind of stuff. It'll be math physics. Because that's, once TQC becomes really doable and done, it will have such a huge impact on the planet that economics ministers, prime ministers will
still be algorithms and data structures.
Yeah,
that the programs will deal with.
Sure, they'll still be
the
there.
nice thing is that
they'll still be there.
NP will become accessible to us.
That hasn't really been
Somebody noticed.
Yeah, it's got a point that was curious, I guess. The science fiction author Peter Watts posited that you could create an AI with actual real neurons. So basically throw a bunch of neurons in a three size of the box and program it. So in effect, basically AI, except you don't have to go through the variety of actually simulated neurons. You have a neuron, everything else is a similar problem, but you have a different set of biological subcode again. Is that remotely plausible or looked into or curious?
Kevin Warwick, and he's already done that.
There's projects which have found that and they have used a biological neuron that connects up to the computer system and able to harvest, for example, a flight simulator plane and run through a mission. That's something that they could do at the moment. I don't know how much further they've gone from that on the projects I've seen.
So the real neurons connect up to electronics, and signals, like if the device that's moving around on wheels gets close to a wall or something, then an electrical shock is given to the neurons. So it learns to avoid the walls. So you have this true cyborg. True energy cyborg.
Is that fast and ethical cognitive?
Well, in the experiment, just kill it.
Indeed, the neuron, the biological neurons from rats and stuff like that. From Warwick and stuff.
But I'm not so not sure that's ethical to be.
Yeah. I'm sure I think that's something they're doing in their code as well.
Leave to
Hypothetically then, if you had the computational power to evolve an artificial intelligence rather quickly, using a topological quantum computer, would you then consider slowing down the development of AI until we have a more robust understanding of ethics?
Doing it blindly, even with massive computing power, I mean, if you think about it, it's taken nature 3 to 4 billion years to evolve us, and it's been using molecular scale computing because life is nanotech in a sense, and it's taken us that long to get to us. So I'm sort of skeptical, just doing it blindly. So I think we'll get there far faster, simply by, no, I really agree with you on that point, is by mimicking the brain. You just extract the knowledge of how our brain does things, and then use the same similar circuitry but with modern technological needs. And then I think real...
Are that advanced? They have the capability to care. The other point was, if we're going to model any living creature, I mean, we have sense of something that it is conscious. I think that's, to me, I do worry about that, but it does make more sense to a degree. So if we go our approach, and we get this amazing processing power, and if I was in charge, I would pause it. And talk to people
when?
like Smart than I.
When do you pause?
I think you can scan it, and then you can maybe try a basic model. Once you have also the processing power, bring the two together and create something that...
If these guys are right, and this stuff can happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years, then the potential benefits in helping us in our current predicament of overpopulation, degrading environment, and potentially political and military chaos is substantial. Why would we want to pause it when we're on the verge of getting something out of it that's really, really important?
Because it's a two-edged sword.
What
You're saying is correct, that you're creating a potential monster.
Yep. That's why I suggest we do it carefully. Not pause it, but do the best we can to make sure that it doesn't turn out to be Frankenstein's monster.
Your point about, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, well, look, if we create these highly intelligent creatures, and smarter than us, won't they recognize that we human beings, we're their parents? Therefore, here's the logic, therefore, they should be nice to us because they realize we are their parents.
Let's just make sure they're imbued with nostalgia.
Yeah, agreed. But what happens when they're like a trillion times above us in abilities? Why should they even care about us? I mean, we can communicate to a rock. A rock communicates, right? It decays after millions of years. That says something. But we don't have the patience. So something that's communicating at a trillion times our speed would just be nothing to it. They wouldn't care a damn about us.
I don't know who's first here. Let's go.
I'm not in AI, therefore I don't know what the basis of talking here about ethical development, ethical or slowing down or speeding up. How cohesive is the field? Is there actually any...
How what?
Cohesive.
Cohesive.
How cohesive is the field? Is there actually any way some group could decide how we are going to channel AI development? Or is it a lot of individual groups with individual funding who are going hell for leather in their own way and we have absolutely no control over it?
I'll tell you what, if MIT tells me what to do, I'll tell them to go to hell.
Okay.
It's a bit of both. Like in the 80s and 90s, it was at the stage of intellectuals or individuals crying in the wilderness. Right? They're on their own, they're having their own ideas, writing their own books. In the US, where it's developed the furthest, and the UK, I'd say thousands of people, and they form groups and organizations on the internet. And the fact that, this is an example of group activity. And the next stage, of course, is to approach the media, educate the public, and then it'll go political, and then you'll get laws being made. We're not there yet. The whole issue is too new, and because it's exponential, it's developing so fast. So if you go backwards in time, it goes from public consciousness back to almost zero in just a small number of years. So it's basically too new.
May I just make a cautionary point? The attempts to make laws to stop something happening was done when you got artificial insemination, you got test tube babies, and so forth.
So results.
The only result of that is that people who wanted to have babies made certain they did get the IVF program, even if it meant there was self-funded IVF clinics in countries which had laws which didn't interfere with them, and now we have no control over their IVF.
Well, there are a lot of people who want to be cyborgs. I mean, they want to be gods themselves. They would love to be able to learn Chinese in a minute just by going. There are a lot of people like that. A lot of people don't want to die. Actually, everybody doesn't want to die. No one wants to be sick. There are a lot of positives here. A lot of positives. But it's a two-edged sword. Living forever?
Look, we already are overpopulated. If you occupy the resources that other people can take, is that really being...
Okay. You die tomorrow. Your time is up.
I'm just saying that there are ethical consequences to these decisions. It isn't... Yeah, you can be a selfish bastard and take what you want out of the world. There are other options as well.
Okay, back to I think AI has always had a culture of being a fringe science, very loose, not as rigorous as the others. And as the processing power grows, smaller groups can do more, and so that is one of the concerns. While in other disciplines, in order to do anything which poses the same concerns, you require more funding, require bigger groups. So there are interest analysis. In AI, the next processing power that's coming, that's less so. At the same time, like any advance in academia anyway, they get published. We all find out about it. Some of the chip development coming.
That's just DOD.
That's just DOD.
Yeah, I guess in some sense AI is getting more like philosophy, and it's becoming more independent of the hardware because the hardware it needs is so accessible. The philosophy is getting more like AI as well. Because you can test your philosophical theories in the computer.
What do you think of the idea that, like Google was saying, that their ultimate objective is to build AI? Like, do you see that coming from, say, more the internet or like search engines rather than computers?
Well, the objective is to make money.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's the rhetoric. Larry Page said they are actually wanting to create AI. That's their goal.
Well, they got more money than I do.
Well, actually, what role do you think Eastern will play in the development of AI?
Sorry?
What role do you think Eastern will play in the development of AI?
Well, it's playing a huge role in everything, in all scientific research, so that will certainly continue.
It creates a
Being the medium for AI to pop into existence, I'm fairly doubtful. But Google certainly has the resources. They hire many of our best graduates and whatever. So who knows?
We've got 200 PhDs in AI alone.
There's a lot of smart people, a lot of funding. At the the same time, they're going for a very different approach. An approach which is very much an engineering approach. It doesn't take into account what we know about cognitive science, what we know about being embodied. When we're embodied, we have this body that helps us interpret our world, to keep in mind what's relevant. But their approach is alien, so it's hard to judge what will happen. On the other hand, using the internet as a source of information to train an AI, you need an AI which is quite capable already to have internet as a feedback loop, as a source of knowledge for them.
But anybody can do that. That's certainly not a rule. It's just internet open access. As for their preconceptions, I don't know anything about the Google group, but I would have thought that embodiment and cognitive science are well understood as significant issues by the vast majority of AI researchers today. So even if they're not focusing on it, I wouldn't see that as a constraint about where they might go in the future.
Not so much of a constraint, more leveraging the amazing knowledge that they already have, going around to doing time.
Well, certainly they want to take advantage of whatever AI developments they come up with in their business, absolutely. We've got so many people. You go ahead, you be one.
Thank you, Martin. You mentioned that the architects with new technology may be humongously smart intellectually. You're probably right. From that, you also imply that they will be ruthless, but you admit, what was mentioned this afternoon, that they might also be emotionally smart, socially smart, ethically smart as well. Why do you deliberately leave off the other dimensions of smartness?
Well, it wasn't deliberate. I mean, at the beginning, when the brain builders create these things, it will be up to them to decide what circuitry to put into the brain, the artificial brains. And very likely they will put in emotional circuits and so forth. So if you heard the famous Crick of Watson and Crick, he wrote a book, The Astonishing Hypothesis. And what he found so astonishing was that everything that we do, think, behave, feel, it's all due to neurons. We're just a bunch of neurons. And that's the astonishing hypothesis. So all the things that we cherish most dearly is just due to neural circuitry, including emotions. Right? So I can imagine the early days, these early ABs, artificial brains, they will have emotional circuits in them for the reasons that we have. You know, why did emotion evolve? What evolutionary purpose did it serve? So all that kind of reasoning, I can imagine, can be put into the early ABs. But once they start self-evolving, that's up to them where they head. And because it's so complex, we as human beings, we can't understand what they're doing. We don't know what their ethics will be, their attitudes towards us. So you're saying that
we might know what their ethics is. We might know what their ethics is. Why presume it's going to be ruthless?
Because of the risk. You just don't know. That's the point. So as a politician, you don't get famous saying, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Well, what is the worst scenario?
That's why I advise designing it to be ethical.
That's where
If you design it to be ethical, then you certainly are minimizing the risk.
That I find a delusion. And the whole argument depends on this.
Of course it is.
It's critical.
What do you think of using AI bots to kind of circumvent the problem with unfriendly AIs? Like, block them up where they can think, we can convince what it's making or it's limited output back. Can we stop them from taking over the world by only giving them a very small way to interact back with us?
Well, if God knows how much smarter than we are, why won't they just escape?
Why don't they just use it in friendly?
That's right. Great religion will be free. How sympathetic will they be when they get out of the box? I'll let you be the guard.
With regards to the evolutionary approach to creating AI, you said that creating something would take, you would need to evolve something beyond the level of humans, like, Singularity. Assuming that the AI that you try and create will be digital data that we talked about. Once it's around the technical intelligence level of humans, could it just copy itself, try and make the changes, see if they work out well? Because we are trying to do this without being enhancing, except in the digital world it was much easier to observe. Why isn't evolutionary approaches integrated in that?
Oh, I think by the time these machines have got to a human level, then I don't think they have any choice. There's nothing left to copy. But to get to the human level, I think copying the human brain is the obvious way to go, because we have this existence proof that we know it's possible. Like, for example, you ask me, what's consciousness? I don't even know how to begin to start thinking about the problem. I'm not a philosopher, that's probably more your field. But I do know whatever it is, it gets built. Right? We know that because babies grow, they're formed, DNA programs the formation of a baby, and the baby becomes conscious and intelligent. But we know inherent in the DNA structure is the message, the coding to create a conscious creature. So we know the solution's out there, so sooner or later we'll find out what it is. But at the moment, conception, do you feel you know what consciousness is? I don't even know how to start to think about it. Like, what is time? It's one of these deep philosophical problems.
You mentioned though that it would be unfeasible to start from scratch and try the evolutionary approach.
Yeah, I'm skeptical. It's so slow.
I said, like, to get to the human level, it's sort of this many billion years, etc. To get further, it would be much quicker, because they would be able to do it themselves.
If we're starting from the human level, yes.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, I don't think there's any alternative.
Basic engineering equipment that might take us a very long time.
In fact, I don't see any alternative, because if it's planned, if these creatures are making a blueprint, this sort of kind of logical type argument, how can any creature of a finite level of intelligence design, plan something that has an intelligence level above itself? Because to be able to do that, you have to have sufficient intelligence to plan it, right? But by definition, that's above the intelligence level that you have. So how can you transcend your own ability? Well, the same way when you have smart children. With smart children.
Civilization, actually.
So I see the evolutionary engineering approach is absolutely critical. Almost no alternative. But then it's uncontrollable because you don't understand what's going on. The circuitry is too complex. So if you take the plunge and actually do the thing, you then take the risk that they may turn against you because you don't know what their ethics is going to be. So risk.
Bring the risk.
Let's talk about some existing approaches. Like, for instance, you quite moved the China Brain Project because you were leading it at one stage. Now, so I think from my understanding, we have the evolved neural nets, which are evolved to sense the environment around and to maybe move, but the cognition and the understanding of like concepts and words are done within open code with weighted labels, hypergraphs, or whatever they're called. Now, you've got those two linking up. Now, they're providing feedback into each other. Now, I'm just wondering, how do you get them talking efficiently? Or can you just talk about that approach and expand on it?
Okay, so I can sort of answer two questions. You're saying the main motivator for creating this kind of stuff is money?
No, that's Google's motivation.
Well, as I was going to say, Ben Goetzel, the Open Korb, that's the name of his software. He's the father of AG, artificial general intelligence. You say lived up history there. In the 50s and 60s, like Minsky, some record of saying true human level artificial intelligence with us by 1960s. So, well, in the 50s and 60s, that was the big dream, to have computers that would reach human level intelligence. And after about 2 decades, it was generally recognized too difficult, and people just sort of gave up. And then AI sort of split into many sub-branches because it was easier to manipulate, easier to get a handle on. So machine learning, databases, perception, knowledge engineering, all these many, many branches. But now, thanks to Moore's law, the machines have pretty well caught up to human bit processing rates. Today's supercomputers are in the petaflop. It's 10,000 trillion floating point operations per second. And that's comparable. A lot of people think that's comparable with what the human brain is doing. So it's now plausible to start realistically simulating the artificial brains.
Sorry, so
in
in the open source project, actually simulating an artificial brain, or is there a different approach? How is that engineered? What's the basic engineering concept there?
For AGI, this is Ben Goertzel's baby, right? He's the father of this. And he argues you don't need detailed neural simulations to generate AGI. You just need the appropriate knowledge, the appropriate architectures, which require far less bits than a fully blown human brain simulation. So Ben and I have argued a bit about this. Now in practice, as we work together, I will still go to the lab one day a week, so to keep my oar in, so to speak. So my half of the project is more perception. You need to be able to observe the world. So I evolve neural nets that perceive in seconds each and put thousands of them together and connect them up according to humanly designed architectures. And Ben uses that as a kind of substrate. That's like the foundation, the basis. And then on top of that, he puts cognition. So you have perception at the lower level and cognition above. And he uses his AGI software type approach. And I'm not an expert in what he's been doing this for years. And if you're interested, Ben Goertzel will come out with a book in a matter of months. He's finished writing it. He's just doing the references right now. And it's called Building Better Minds. Catchy title. And in it, he will spell out his vision of how to.
And great Goertzel coming out with his book, How the Mind Works and How to Build It.
Yeah, now, interesting, Ben Goertzel spoke with Ray Kurzweil at the very recent summit that was a few weeks ago in the US. And Kurzweil says he hasn't written the essential part of the actual design. It's written all the preliminary tech stuff, and he hasn't bitten the bullet, so to speak, on the actual design of the brain.
So that's
be interesting to see what he does come out.
So that's the basic design of open source. Is there any other approaches to AGI that you're aware of, that you know have some idea about how it's engineered, or how they're approaching engineering AGI for evolving?
There are lots of. Oh, sorry.
So the lots of ideas about how to design a brain. Like George's EDI, for example. It's a kind of intended to be a general purpose design for an artificial intelligence. I don't think it's exactly on the right track, but certainly belief, desire, intention, and lots of other things. Emotionality, all of those things are there for good reason, I'm sure. Otherwise, evolution would come up with that.
There's not that many approaches which tries to have a complete quantum system. There's open Korb, there's Blue Brain, and a few others. So which try to kind of have a package altogether. There's like millions of like smaller approaches which take a segment of what we think of as complete AI and apply to small problems. There's only a few more. There's the cognitive architecture approach, the scanning approach, building neurons, and evolving from scratch, which are pretty much like CS4, which are more complete.
There are certainly some other models around. I've studied them, for example, including the causal learning of Bayesian networks and integrating them into decision-making and classification systems and so on.
Yeah, my hand sort of a time ago, you mentioned that the then the idea that we don't actually have a theory of consciousness, well, it's certainly in philosophy, there's definitely
We have too many theories, that's the problem.
okay.
I'm not saying there are no theories.
Consciousness from Cicero onwards was the idea of being able to make a moral decision. Okay? And it's not embodied in our DNA. Our DNA certainly gives the capacity to do so, but there is a handful, a tiny handful of children who have been brought out outside society, and they, the genie case being most famous, and they are not conscious in the sense that we know. They are instinctual creatures, and what's more important is, of course, once they actually reach puberty, is shown that they actually cannot learn language.
You're talking about feral, F-E-R-A-L, feral children?
Yes. Yes. And, one definition of consciousness is the capacity to form shared symbolic values. Mutual understanding and shared symbolic values. Throw the question, this is a bit of what John Sturlake, throw the question to the side, hang it, panel. How are you going to do that in a computational sense? Because building even an exact copy of the brain in like a hardware sense is not going to make it conscious.
We're going to start off by just rejecting your thing. I don't accept that animals other than humans are not conscious.
Well,
I think that's just
it's
wrong. Sorry?
Each other. So, it's a continuum, it's not absolute.
Yeah, okay, I agree, it continues. And I think that feral children are conscious. I agree that, of course, their mental life is different from those who are raised in society and able to speak and communicate in human language.
Do they make a moral choice?
Sorry?
Do they make a moral choice? Or are they creatures largely instinct?
I wouldn't call them creatures of instinct. They've just learned in a different environment. And they haven't learned what we've learned. And they're moral agents in the sense that they're making choices, and they're ethical choices or they're unethical choices.
Okay, that's correct.
We'll go on. When I was in my PhD, I am still in my PhD, I looked everywhere for projects which focus on strong AI. I could find very many in Australia. There's only, as far as I can tell, there's only a handful around the world that I personally would classify as something that we should be concerned about. And at the same time, people who are working on those projects, they're involved in that industry. And from what I've seen of their work, their thoughts, they are very aware of these technical issues, and they are treating them very seriously.
But the projects are in big companies. I mean, IBM in the US is throwing huge money. They talk about cognitive computing, and they see that as their future market. The home robot industry, for example, in the 2020s. IBM will make a fortune.
Putting potentially very lucrative possibilities for commercializing on this sort of thing.
Yeah, but this is today, with today's IBM management, that there is cognitive computing. And the CEO of IBM is pushing this very hard. It's the near future.
You asked what is consciousness, and I'm no genius, I have no drive insights into it. I think we've agreed here that there's a spectrum of consciousness from the word to us. But also put to you what's being omitted here, there's two kinds of consciousness at least. There's self-consciousness, awareness of our senses and of our thoughts. And there's other consciousness, aware of other entities, senses and their thoughts. And an evolved being, an other perhaps, will have both of those kinds of consciousness. And from that, and I don't think this is an outlandish proposition, from those two kinds of consciousness comes compassion rather than ruthlessness. Please be God.
Okay. Let me put you in a reverse role, okay? It's post-mid-21st century, and you live in a global state, and you are a global politician. Would you take the risk that what you just said is going to be true? Or would you be cynical and say, maybe not? Maybe these creatures could be dangerous to the human species. What would you plan for?
I understand well what you're saying. Of course, the project is
Even if the cost is the potential extermination of the whole human species.
Well,
Would you go that far?
You've got to prove that it can't be contained.
But you can't prove it, that's the risk.
You can't prove it, I can't. It's a new point.
It's another side. Requiem for a species.
On the climate change issue.
That is to say, we face existential threats regardless. And these things might actually help us deal with them.
First, may I just say something which I've been thinking about the whole day. It's really nice being in a room and we're talking about things like that and not being a woman, which I frequently are, and I'm glad that so many women are in it. But we talked earlier on about whether or not there can be some sort of consensus about how you deal AI in the different groups. Is there anyone who's discussing the other side of it, which is when and where do we need to institute laws? And we need to really push on that to give AI's protection, because if they're going to get even close to human intelligence, they should be in a position where we can't just switch them off or do what we want to.
Okay. Now, to answer your question, you really need to think about the climbing time, right?
Yes.
You're talking
I'm talking
exponential.
about the climbing time. I'm not talking about when they're way above us. Then they can protect
Yeah,
themselves.
but the number of years between when we give them rights and when they give us rights,
Yes.
that climbing time may be just a few years. These things are thinking at 1,000,000 times faster than us, right? They're at electronic speeds and we think at chemical speed. So they can go from A to B.
I'm not disputing that. I'm saying that to begin with, it's going to give us some moral compass of where we are. If we have laws about how to protect AIs as they are evolving, and the other one is they might make them feel a little bit better inclined towards us if we protect them when they can protect themselves. And none of these things, we will leave this up to the politicians. We will leave this up until, it becomes a necessity. If we're not happy, we know that from law level.
But we're just not there yet. The level of public consciousness on this issue is still, it's in too much of a state of ignorance.
Politicians aren't going to do anything about this opposed to it anyway.
So do we need to found an institute of ethical AI
Yes.
where we come up with rules and then try to impose them on all the AI research? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's see how far we get with that.
Seriously, maybe. It needs to get out into the public. So I hope you as a community really start pushing the Australian journalists, because that's the obvious next step, right? To get out the consciousness amongst the general public. And then they can debate, it'll get mass media, then it gets political, then you get your laws.
Well, I think laws work in precedents. There has to be a prototype, something there for any action to be taken.
There also has to be the possibility of enforcement. If you have laws that are unenforceable, it's just a waste of time. And as far as controlling robot behavior, I don't think laws are going to give us any kind of a reasonable answer. We either engineer them properly or we don't.
Because you can imagine a basement type small team creating these things. And how do you police that?
That's why we need to get to an ethical AI first.
Assuming it can be done.
Just on that, if we have to put in ethical boundaries on something we're creating, let's say, that not the sense that at the level of human or above, what's the difference between what's the whole difference between doing that and brainwashing a human with human numbers and putting the moral boundaries on them?
I guess they're equivalent.
We have to design, I don't see how they're equivalent, we have to design our robots in some fashion.
Oh yeah, I understand.
If we're going to design them at all. So,
Where's the difference between designing artificial intelligence and modifying human intelligence with the same engines?
well, amongst other things, we don't have that latter option. It's not actually an engineering possibility at the moment. Not that AI is, but anyway, we're aiming to develop an AI. And if we're going to take the last step to having an AI, right, you have to make choices about how that's going to operate. It's either going to operate ethically or it isn't. Make that choice.
You need robot in Java?
Just a quick announcement, it is slightly past 9 o'clock, so if you need to go, you're welcome to class. But if you want to stick around and continue this interesting panel, then I'm happy to have it.
I suggest that we said we could claim to a bar.
Yes, we can claim to a bar, but for those leaving now, tomorrow starts in 12 hours. At 9 a.m. tomorrow.
I just wanted to make one point. The crucial question is whether the question of ethics is an objective, can be answered in an objective way or not. And I know that a lot of people are very quick to say, no, ethics are not objective at all, but the scholarly debate on the matter is far from over. There's, on the one hand, we have Becky, with his argument for queerness and argument from relativity. On the other hand, we have McDowell, who makes the argument that there might very well be an objective morality. And the question, the reason why this question is so crucial is because suppose we have an objective morality, then a transhuman AI would be much more better equipped to find this objective morality. And if morality and ethics is in fact not objective, then it's just a matter of whim anyway. So who has any say in that? So, I think that's in essence where this hinges on.
Well, my view is human ethics evolved. Right? It's Darwinian. And hence it's due to our particular neural structures and so forth. It evolved. So if you change the structures, if you change the architecture, then the ethics changes. And who's to know that these super creatures, these arthroids, what their ethics may become?
It's only true if ethics is not determined by natural laws.
Well, I think it is, because it evolved. But who's to know how it would evolve in the future?
Yeah, I'll just agree with you. I'd say that ethics is about as clearly settled as the mind-body problem, which is to say not.
Do you think it ever can be? I mean, is it more like a trajectory or is it a state?
Well, there are ethical theories and there are that are useful. Utilitarianism is one. It seems to do pretty good justice to our ethical institutions, which of course evolve. So it doesn't give us a final word. The fact that something evolved doesn't mean it's right or good. That's just a naturalistic fallacy that we conclude that because our ethics evolved, therefore we're right. But whether you can find some other grounds for basing ethics on natural law or some sort of objective externality, I don't know.
Can we play a little game?
Those problems are just really, really hard. They're hard to think about and hard to come to any compelling sort of conclusion about.
Hey, Hugo wants to play a game.
Would you like to play a little game? Okay, well.
Yeah, sure.
Somebody holds a gun to your head and you're forced to answer the following question. How many human beings would you sacrifice for the creation of 1 trillion level superior artillery? 1, 10, 100,000, million? Just how valued do you consider the creation of a godlike artillery to be?
I think you'll have to tell me what it's going to do.
It just exists. Just be.
Zero.
Zero. 50. Well, here we have the future generation taking the cosmos view.
It's not going to do anything, and I don't particularly give a damn that it happens to be very, very smart.
It's all science fiction and implausible at the moment, but this century sometime people are going to have to take this question very seriously. Are we going to build these? It's a binary decision, right? We build them or we don't build them.
Okay, I'm beyond taking questions seriously.
Do we have a choice? How can we stop it from happening?
Personally, I don't think we can stop it.
There's a pub. It's called, I think, Che Gao.